One of the major issues of a sedentary lifestyle in the Canadian Arctic is the availability of clean drinking water. Rankin Inlet is the second largest settlement in Nunavut, with a population of about 3,000 in 2022. Rankin Inlet receives its water from Lake Nipissar in pipes, about 2 kilometers in length, and recently they also tapped into the Char River. Rankin Inlet has struggled to provide their town with a long-term source of safe drinking water, a problem being experienced by many communities all over Nunavut. There have also been issues in Rankin Inlet with water quality, as sometimes it can look like muddy water, which they are told is still safe to drink. There is little data on the topic, and a lot of what is out there is no longer useful. It has become outdated. In Rankin Inlet, the pipe water distribution system is aged and in poor condition. The system was installed in the 70s, and according to analysis carried out by the government of Nunavut, it does not meet current codes and standards, nor does it meet the current and future water needs of the community. The pipelines were installed by the federal government, have an expected service life of around 30 years, while some of the systems have pipes over 40 years old, such as Williamson Lake Pump House, also in Rankin. The result is corroding piping, leaks, buildup of corrosive products within pipes, deteriorating water storage tanks, and broken valves. Furthermore, pipes carrying water throughout the community leak, contributing to low water pressure, significant wastage, and the depletion of the community's fresh water supply at Lake Nipissar. The high bleed rate and leakage within the piped water utility system contributes to Rankin Inlet consuming 627 liters of water per capita per day on average, compared to the Canadian residential average of 251 liters. High water consumption in the absence of maintenance or conservation measures, and in the combination with multiple other factors such as population growth and reduced precipitation, could result in the community facing end-of-winter shortages as early as 2022. The Nunavut Water Board, NWB, provides licenses for water use and waste disposal, but the organization lacks the scope to appropriately govern freshwater resources. One researcher, Andrew Medeiros, is quoted as saying, "Nunavut entirely has a much larger problem than that. They don't actually have a water policy, a program, an adaptation plan, or anything. They do not have a freshwater strategy. Nunavut is the only jurisdiction in Canada that doesn't." Everyone in the community uses that water source. That is why this situation is so important. People cannot live without water, and in the Arctic, freshwater sources can be hard to come by. There is a lack of incentive to prevent overuse and depletion of this resource because there is no alternative, which could ultimately lead to a tragedy of the commons. Resources need to be invested into the community to ensure proper water systems are created, maintained, and sufficient to support the quick-growing community. If this does not happen, a depletion of the water supply could seriously impact the community, as you cannot live without drinkable water. There is no feasible alternative due to the massive expense needed to ship clean water to the Arctic. A study from Alaska shows that when access to water is limited, it causes consequences for healthcare. Studies have shown a 2 to 4 times higher hospitalization rate among children under 3 years of age for pneumonia, influenza, and childhood respiratory virus infections, and higher rates of skin infections on persons of all ages in villages where the majority of homes had lower water availability compared to homes with higher water availability due to piping. The largest age group in Rankin Inlet is the 0 to 4 years range, and without a reliable source, the growth of the population will begin to slow down as the infants become ill and ultimately some will not recover. There is also less resources to deal with illness in Rankin Inlet in general, so the problem becomes much more serious than if it were happening in southern Canada. Furthermore, with increased rates of hospitalization for respiratory and skin infections, this could increase the use of antibiotics, which in turn could lead to resistant bacteria, such as a resistant tuberculosis. Tuberculosis rates in the Canadian Arctic are 290 times higher than the rest of residential Canada, so antibacterial resistance is certainly an important factor to keep in mind, especially because TB is consistently in the top 10 annual global causes of death worldwide. Forcing the Inuit to become sedentary after centuries of living a nomadic life is one of the most significant reasons this problem is occurring. Sharing knowledge orally and visually through generations, the idea of staying put and living around one water source was never a part of that, so there is no cultural knowledge that can be used to help save them. Climate change is another important factor in the diminishing availability of fresh water in Rankin Inlet. As year over year temperatures rise, permafrost melts, and precipitation and evaporation patterns change. Multiple climate-driven factors are contributing to the shrinking surface area and disappearance of freshwater ponds and lakes throughout the Arctic. Recent analysis of lake counts and lake surface areas in western Greenland from the 60s to present day found that the region is becoming hotter and drier. Lake counts decreased by 21% and surface area by 2% during the study period, and similar patterns have been observed in the Canadian Arctic. The stakeholders in Rankin Inlet are primarily the people, as they are the ones who stand to lose the most if the water source becomes depleted. Without a reliable source, the population is at a greater risk of encountering serious health issues in the community, while also having fewer modern resources to deal with these issues. Scientists are also stakeholders in this issue, as there is insufficient research on this topic. Studies investigating Arctic community water sources will become more and more valuable as climate change continues to dry and warm the Arctic and the communities continue to deplete what they have. The last major stakeholder in this situation is the local, provincial, and federal government, as they are all the ones responsible for ensuring the community has a safe water source. The federal government will have to provide millions in the future to help overcome this issue, and the provincial and local governments will have to collaborate and ensure the most effective countermeasures are taken, opposed to delaying the problem another 10 years. Too many Inuit struggle to access drinking water and to enjoy our human right to water. A sedentary lifestyle and, more importantly, climate change are the main factors for the decreased drinking water in Rankin and Nunavut as a whole. Both of these were imposed on the Inuit by people who do not live in the Arctic. Excessive anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions over the last century seem to be the main threat to the Inuit water supply. So as society slowly turns carbon neutral, hopefully the water crisis will stay manageable and not escalate to a tragedy of the commons where certain areas become unlivable.